Out on the ELA-2 pad, the Ariane-40 launcher for Ariane-Start flight 107. Up top, our passenger for this flight, the Spot 4 satellite built for CNES, the French space agency, with Matra Marconi Space as prime contractor. Hello to all our viewers and welcome to the Guiana Space Center for the third Ariane-Start launch of 1998. Thank you for joining us despite the postponement of this launch over the weekend. Details in a moment. Your commentators in English for tonight's event are Rémi Cochet. Hi there, Rémi.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Simon.
And I'm Simon Hayes. Launch system status is looking good for liftoff, with all indicators showing green for go. Scheduled launch times are shown on your screen now, but instead of the usual launch window, we have a strictly go, no-go situation. In other words, a single-shot launch opportunity. Spot 4 will be injected almost directly into its operational orbit. No transfer orbit, no trajectory dip. This is substantially different from the Telecom payload launches many of you will be used to. More about Spot 4 orbit later on. The Guiana Space Center has a wide launch arc over the ocean, equally suitable for eastward launches into geostationary transfer orbit and north into sun-synchronous polar orbit like tonight. This Ariane-Start broadcast is going out live to viewers in France, Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Singapore, Sweden, here in French Guiana, and our regular supporters with the Space Night TV program in Germany.
Here you have on the screen the mission director for this night, which is Didier Cassé, and the DDO, Monsieur Jacques Schrieve from CNES.
The DDO acts as the information interface between the pad before liftoff and the launcher in flight and the outside world. We'll tell you how the system functions a little later on.
And again, the status panels, everything remains green for the moment.
And very quickly, the problem which held us up on Friday. Nothing very serious. A faulty connection in one of the Spot 4 modules was detected. The fairing was opened up and the trouble cleared, and nobody's weekend was spoilt. The Ariane-40 is the basic version of the Ariane-4 family with no solid or liquid propellant boosters. This is the least powerful of the 6 versions, but fully matches the performance requirement for this flight. Total liftoff mass is 246 tons. The payload represents a little over 1% of total mass. Spot 4, bedded down inside the fairing with a mass of nearly 2.8 metric tons, is almost 50% heavier than the earlier Spot spacecraft. And a quick time and status check, 25 minutes to go, all is green. Now meet the members of the Flight Command Cell for Flight 107. Roger Solari, head of the Ariane-Start Crew Center. Jean-Louis Seguesio, representing the CNES Launcher Division. Jean-Marie Agas, head of the Ariane-Start Operations Division, and Daniel Munier, just coming into camera now. No, got it wrong. He's Daniel Munier is Vice President Technical of Ariane-Start. The Flight Command Cell has a supervisory function and only intervenes in the event of a major problem, for example, where a decision to stop the count or not is required. This can, of course, involve consultation with the satellite customer. And we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes or so after the break.
1980, as the first industrial and commercial space transportation company in the world, Ariane Space operates the Ariane launch system developed by the French space agency CNES on behalf of the European Space Agency ESA. Ariane Space demonstrates European scientific and technical capabilities and has the backing of the space industry and banks of 13 countries. Ariane Space operates worldwide, with its European headquarters at Évry, just outside Paris in France, a subsidiary in Washington, D.C. in the USA, a branch office in the Asia-Pacific zone located in Tokyo in Japan, and a launch complex in Kourou, French Guiana, with a unique geographical position close to the equator. Combined with the extremely accurate orbit injection of Ariane, this equatorial position extends the life of the satellites. Constantly adjusting to changes in international market demand, Ariane-Space provides customers with a complete, personalized range of launch services based on extensive experience and a highly reliable vehicle which can place payloads of up to 4.8 metric tons with Ariane 4 and in the near future 7 tons with Ariane 5 directly into orbit. Ariane-Space is engaged in a long-term production program with its European space industry partners. The manufacturing, which follows a tight quality policy, is permanently aimed at meeting customer requirements worldwide. "12,000 highly qualified Europeans are engaged in this manufacturing activity. The success of this venture is largely due to the power and cohesion of the industrial partners involved. The principal contractors are Aerospatiale, SEP, DASA, the Fiat Group, Matra Marconi Space, CASA, Oerlikon Contraves. The various launcher sub-assemblies are built in Europe and taken by sea, air and land to the Kourou spaceport.
Status panel. Another look at the status panel. We'll be keeping an eye on this right through to liftoff. I noticed that the weather situation is green on the panel. You had a report just now, Rémi.
Yes, just a few words about the meteo. All the parameters and conditions for liftoff are okay for the moment.
Good news. The status panel, as we said, we shall be keeping a close watch all the way through. This tells us what is going on in the downrange tracking stations, the telemetry system, and of course the weather situation. We'll be having the final report just about 10 minutes before liftoff. The combination of green conditions on the panel gives us launch authorization, of course. And we had another quick look into the Launch Control Center. This is where all launch preparation operations are controlled and monitored. And now a film summary of the launcher preparation campaign.
So the Ariane 40 for Flight 107 was shipped out to French Guiana at the end of January. The launcher preparation campaign for this version lasts 24 days. The first part of the campaign, 2 weeks, is devoted to destocking, erecting, assembling and checking out the launcher stages. After erection of the first stage on the mobile table, the second stage is added and mated with the first stage, followed by the third stage with its distinctive thermal cladding overcoat, hoisted to the top of the assembly dock and mated in turn. And finally, the vehicle equipment bay, the brain of the Ariane launcher, is brought up and integrated with the third stage. This phase terminates with final preparation procedure in the assembly dock. The launcher is, in its flat top configuration, is rolled out to the 1 kilometer to the ELA-2 pad. This took place 2 weeks ago. Before the gantry is brought up to the shroud, the launcher, the cryogenic fueling devices are closed on the third stage and the valve plates connected. Once in position, the gantry protects the launcher and provides access for integration of the payload composite and other final pre-launch tasks. It is withdrawn only 5 hours before liftoff.
And we're back in real time with the launcher still in the final stages of third stage fueling with liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. Third stage fueling can only take place after withdrawal of the gantry. And now some members of the Spot 4 satellite team here in Mission Control.
Yes, in the front row is Brigitte Tedaldi, the Spot 4 satellite preparation manager, Mr. Bernard Lamaison, the Deputy Mission Director, and finally Mr. Langtong, the Spot mission director from CNES Toulouse. And here, Mr. Didier Cassé, the Ariane-Space mission director, on screen.
And the rest of the satellite team are in the Technical Center S1 building, a few hundred meters from Mission Control, or in the Launch Control Center. We now have the first of the 3 films on the Spot 4 satellite. Well, that was interesting. I didn't quite get the bit about the sugar tongs, though. A little over 16 minutes to lift off, and the status panel is strictly ecological. A reminder for any of you who may have dozed off for a moment, you're watching the final stages of the countdown for Flight 107 with Spot 4.
Yes, again, Miss Brigitte on screen, and then just a few seconds news from the previous flights, Flight 105 with Brazilsat B3 and Inmarsat 3
Knowing
F5.
the degree of deforestation in the south of Cali province, the damage caused by forest fires north of Marseille, or the extent of desertification southeast of Bamako over the past 5 years, Spot's missions are many, and customers are multiple and belong to various fields: cartography, agriculture, geology, defense, and oil companies. Equally, the range of Spot products is wide, from standard products to 3D and value-added products. Developed in France by CNES in association with Sweden and Belgium, Spot is the world leader for the supply of geographic data provided by satellite. Thanks to over 12 years' experience, projects can be carried out over the long term. After Spot 1, 2 and 3, Spot 4 with its 5-year lifespan fits perfectly in the follow-through rationale. But continuity doesn't prevent progress. Spot 4 has a new common platform with the satellite Helios 1. New programming software, a doubling of onboard recording capacity, new versions of Doris and Poem instruments. New equipment such as Pastec and Pastel for links between satellites with an ESA's Silex program, and a new shortwave infrared spectral band, SWIR. But above all, it has vegetation, linking the European Union and Italy to Spot's regular partners. Vegetation carries out continuous observation of world vegetation. Spot 4 is an extremely high-performance tool, but the success of the program relies on the quality of the system as a whole. At the base of demand are the customers, in contact with Spot Image. With 3 subsidiaries and a wide distribution network, Spot Image is present throughout the world. Satellite programming is performed in Toulouse, in southwestern France. High-resolution image reception is ensured by stations in Toulouse and Kiruna, and 21 other stations spread worldwide. Over 5 million images, true life snapshots of the planet, are listed and accessible on internet. This vast image databank enables users, among other things, to make multiple comparisons of the same zone over time. The Spot system is backed up by the company Scott Conseil, which develops steam-based applications using Spot data. At the same time, GDTA attends to user training in the area of Earth observation. Today, the Spot program forges ahead with the launch of Spot 4, plus Spot 5 scheduled to be launched starting September 2001. To be ever more responsive to customer needs, the program is committed to providing continuity of service and enhancement of performance.
Tic-a-tac. Spot 4 will be the 8th Earth observation satellite to be placed into orbit on Ariane, its predecessors being the first 3 Spot spacecraft, 2 ERS, Helios and Topex Poseidon. There was a lot about the vegetation instrument in that clip. This is one of the most important additions to the Spot 4 payload, and the final clip in the series from our customer, coming up now, emphasizes this point.
Vegetation, a new Earth observation instrument, will be carried into orbit as a Spot 4 passenger payload. It will acquire global coverage of our planet's vegetation cover in the visible and shortwave infrared band. With a resolution of about 1,000 meters and a swath width of 2,250 kilometers, vegetation will acquire daily coverage of virtually all exposed land masses, making it possible to monitor the terrestrial biosphere at both regional and global scale. Vegetation uses the same spectral bands as Spot 4's main HRVIR imaging instruments, thus ensuring that both payloads acquire imagery under the same viewing and illumination conditions. The complementarity of vegetation's revisit capability and the HRVIR payload's high spatial resolution offers unprecedented opportunities for image interpretation. Launched as a CNES initiative, the vegetation instrument was developed as a European cooperation program by the European Union, France, Belgium, Sweden, and Italy. The system also includes extensive ground facilities for product ordering and distribution to users, plus data reception, pre-processing, and archiving. The European Union's participation testifies to the importance of vegetation data for the implementation of its common agricultural policy and development assistance policy, and for environmental monitoring on a planetary scale.
We move steadily towards scheduled liftoff, now less than 11 minutes away. With some fill coming up in a moment on the satellite preparation campaign, but in fact, how long has the satellite been up top on the launch, Jeremy?
Yes, the hosting took place at D-5, and D-4 we have the final docking of the spacecraft.
And obviously it's been under strictly controlled environmental conditions ever since then. The Spot 4 satellite preparation campaign began with offloading of the 3 main containers at Cayenne-Rochambeau Airport. After transport to the payload preparation facilities at the Guiana Space Center in Kourou, the containers were carefully opened and integration of the satellite could begin. The first step was to hoist the service module for transfer to the integration stand. A similar operation was carried out for the payload module. This was followed by integration with the service module after a high-precision docking maneuver. Here the satellite was tilted into a horizontal position and prepared to receive the solar generator. The generator was folded while hoisted and coupled up to the satellite. After final preparation and electrical testing in the S1 building, the satellite was transferred to the fueling hall in a purpose-built container. The satellite propulsion system was fueled with hydrazine. This operation is hazardous and is conducted by operators in special scape suits. This completed the preparation phase for the satellite. The next step was combined encapsulation before integration with the launcher. This involved assembly with the payload adapter and the vehicle equipment bay cone, and finally closure of the 2 half fairings. One last important operation, careful application of the Spot 4 mission logo on the outside of the fairing. The payload composite was moved out to the Ariane launch pad in the evening of day D-5 and hoisted to the upper payload platform inside the service gantry. Finally, the composite was integrated with the launcher the following day and coupled up. The Ariane-40 launcher for Flight 107 with its passenger Spot 4 was then ready to start the count. Right, and the big question, Rémi, what did the weather people have to tell us while you were listening in to the final report?
Yes, all the meteor conditions are green for liftoff and the entire flight. No wind, no lightning risks, everything is okay.
Good news indeed. And of course no mention of an asteroid impact in our backyard in the foreseeable future. Our last piece of film was shot only 6 hours ago, and this concerns we see the service gantry withdrawal procedure. This operation took place this afternoon when the immense gantry structure, 98 meters high and weighing in at a little under 4,000 tons, was pulled back a mere 80 meters. I say mere because this epic journey takes about 1 hour.
With the gantry off the launcher, fueling of the third stage tanks with LOX and hydrogen can begin. The fueling takes 3 hours and is only tailed off a matter of minutes before liftoff. The final task is the pressurization of the third stage tank with helium.
Well, gantry withdrawal is always watched with keen interest. When the gantry starts to move, it's a clear sign that there's every intention of attempting the launch a few hours later, even if the weather looks bad to the uninitiated. Well, looking ahead for a moment, Rémi, while the 107 campaign is coming very close to its climax, the next campaign for Flight 108, that has already commenced, I think.
Yes, it's just today, this morning, they began with Flight 108.
Well, in a few moments' time, at T minus 6 minutes, we shall enter the last segment of this count, a count which has been running for 14.5 hours now. And at that moment, we shall enter...
Atout de DDO, attention pour le début de la séquence synchronisée.
As he's just said, the DDO, we shall enter the synchronized sequence.
Top, H0 moins 6 minutes.
And we are now indeed inside the synchronized sequence, and control of the launcher has been transferred from human operators to the 2 ground computers in the Launch Control Center. The reason for this is not hard to find. The volume of data to be acquired, sorted, processed and checked in these last minutes is so vast, and the number of command signals to be generated is so great, that the job could not be done, even with hundreds of extra personnel, in so short a time. So what does the changeover really mean in concrete terms, Rémi?
That means now that the 2 ground computers they have taken over, and they will monitor the vehicle until his liftoff. They prepare in different time slots the vehicle, they close valves, open other valves, pressurization the tanks and so on.
And in a moment we're going to have a view of the cryogenic arms. These carry the fueling pipes for the third stage, and they are still coupled up to the third stage valve plates. These arms also provide a stabilizing function for the launcher after gantry withdrawal in association with the launch table clamps. We have this curious 2-camera picture with the 2 arms sandwiched together, and these arms will open just 5 seconds before stage 1 ignition. So, Rémi, what are the main events that will occur during these last few minutes of the count?
At minus 5 minutes, we have stopped with the topping of the third stage. Now we're waiting for minus 3 minutes and 40 seconds, where we will put the flight pressure on the hydrogen tank. The Spot 4 has already switched over to internal power at the very beginning of the sequence.
We keep peeping into the Launch Control Center. What are they doing in there with the computers having grabbed control of just about everything?
Yes, everybody's just waiting, checking out the different systems and be ready in case of a problem.
Well, I suppose the situation must be largely similar in the downrange tracking stations, radar and telemetry, and of course The Kourou station will have already locked onto the launcher on the pad some while back, I suppose. It must be tracking a stationary object, so to speak.
Yes, this general rendezvous with everybody has taken place at -1 hour and 10 minutes, and the telemetry flow is now going to the Kourou tracking station.
We have the satellite team again in camera. They're looking just a little bit edgy, but then aren't we all at this stage of the count? Now, I have a question. The launcher will switch to onboard power at the last possible moment at just about 1 minute from time t. The reason is obvious, battery saving. So why does the satellite switch over to its onboard power rather earlier?
They have quite the same reason to switch over as late as possible, but we want them to be ready as soon as possible, as soon as we engage the automatic launch sequence.
Well, everyone looks pretty calm in here.
Now the next step in the automatic sequence is at -2 minutes and 15 seconds, where we will put the flight pressure on the oxygen tank on the third stage.
And our status panel is still looking nice and green.
Mr. Didier Cassé and Bernard Lamaison on screen, on the phone.
They're hiding their anguish if they are feeling any such emotion. Another look into the
Launch Control Center with Pierre-François Beneteau. He's in charge of the liftoff today.
And we're a minute and a half from time t. And just a word for the latecomers, because there always seem to be latecomers. You finally made it, great, and you're still in time to catch Ariane Flight 107, carrying spot 4, departing from pad ELA 2 in just over a minute from now.
À tous de DDO, attention pour -1 minute. Top, H0 -1 minute.
And we have the official announcement from the DDO. The launcher is on onboard power.
Now the next step is at -12 seconds, where we switch all the onboard computers and flight navigation systems on flight mode.
And the people leaving are not running away from a fire. They're going out onto the balcony to watch Ariane lift off with their naked eyes, the lucky ones. Just a moment to say a quick good luck message to the satellite team. And we'll leave the rest to the DDO.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allez, décollage. Tous les paramètres sont nominaux. Trajectoire normale, les paramètres normaux.
Well, with a good getaway after the short vertical ascent, Ariane has completed the tilt maneuver with an initial climb angle that's very tight. This will widen as the launcher goes up to the top of its trajectory. We have a steady burn from the 4 Viking engines. You may have noticed bits and pieces dropping off the launcher as it cleared the tower. That's the thermal cladding of the second stage, nothing to worry about. We're tracking on the pad area cameras for the moment, and we still have a good clear picture
Fin de la
up
manœuvre
there
en roulis.
in the night sky. The launcher is being tracked on radar from Kourou and shortly Cayenne, and we've been
Passage du
having
transsonique.
And we just had the DDO pointing out that Ariane has now gone supersonic, and you may possibly hear the rumble of the launcher as it is almost on the vertical of mission control. We have already been getting a series of announcements from the DDO. This is data coming to us from the launcher. We'll explain how this information is processed a little later on. Everything is strictly nominal on board. Now we have the trajectory plot on the screen and have had for some time. Rémi, I think we should explain this.
Yes, before that maybe just a few words about the first stage burnout within 15 seconds from now, the end of the first stage main thrust. Now the trajectory, this map shows the trajectory in a vertical position, and this little point climbing up is the vehicle. All this data comes from the radar from Kourou and Cayenne and are processed here. Now within few seconds the burnout of the first stage, confirmed by the DDO.
Séparation E2.
Separation.
Allumage du deuxième étage.
And ignition of the second stage. And we shall have another, there we have it, another computer-assisted replay.
La trajectoire est normale et les paramètres sont nominaux.
We're already at an altitude of over 80 kilometers, and our velocity, launcher velocity, is 1.9 kilometers per second, which is just around 7,000 kilometers per hour.
And now within few seconds we'll have the jettisoning of the fairing. That means the launcher is outside of the atmosphere right now.
So it no longer requires the protection of the fairing, and we're also getting rid of a bit of superfluous mass. There we have the announcement of fairing separation. And the replay. Altitude now 125, 130 kilometers. Velocity 2.4 kilometers per second. We're aiming for a figure of what for orbit injection on this flight, Rémi?
Yes, the velocity will be 7.6 kilometers per second and the altitude roughly 800 kilometers.
Which is substantially different from our usual GTO pattern.
Trajectoire normale et paramètres normaux.
Everything is still strictly nominal on board. And we have about another 30 seconds burn time with the second stage. The chill down process for the third stage power system will be terminating with the ignition of the third stage in a few seconds from now.
Extinction deuxième étage.
We have burnout of
séparation de 3.
Second stage, separation of 2 and 3.
Allumage du troisième étage, tous les paramètres sont normaux.
And the big one we're always so pleased to hear, ignition of stage 3.
So all the data flow from the vehicle is still coming down to the telemetry station of Kourou, but within 2 minutes from now, the Bermuda station will have the telemetry from the launcher.
Well, we've now commenced the long stage 3 burn phase, and after the hustle and bustle of these first 5 minutes, since the clamps opened and Ariane lifted off, we can adopt a more relaxed approach. Oh yes, Francesca, I'd enjoy a cup of coffee very much. Thank you. So before we get back to Spot 4 and the Spot program, we're not much more than 12 minutes from separation of the satellite. We have the chance to cover a number of news items and updates. So first of all, news of launch contract signings. Ariane-Start has recently obtained orders for launching 2 important telecommunications satellites, GE5 for GE Americam and PAS-6B for PanAmSat. Both these American operators are long established and regular customers of Ariane-Start. PAS-6B will be the 13th PanAmSat spacecraft to fly on Ariane. However, perhaps the most remarkable point is that both satellites are scheduled for launch before the end of the year, only 9 months after contract signature.
La trajectoire est normale et les paramètres sont normaux.
Another pretty good example of Ariane launch system flexibility, and we continue to get entirely satisfactory announcements from the DDO.
Other recent new business includes the Stentor launch contract. Here again the customer is CNES. Stentor is, or rather will be, a technological demonstration telecommunications payload and will be launched on Ariane-5 during the second half of the year 2000. At the customer's end, France Telecom and French Ministry of Defense DGA procurement division are also involved, while the manufacturing team comprises Aerospatiale, Alcatel Espace, and you've guessed it, Matra Marconi Space.
And finally, we've two small, unit mass 100 kilograms, but important passengers which will also fly on Ariane-5. These are the STR-V1C and 1D technological demonstration microsatellite for the British Ministry of Defense. And we have acquisition by the Bermuda downrange station. And these two tiddlies will be on board Ariane-5 qualification flight 503 in midsummer of this year.
This will provide the opportunity to use the Ariane-5 version of the ASAP auxiliary payload carrier structure for the first time.
Il reste 10 minutes de propulsion.
And of course, we already have a launch scheduled for the British MOD this year with Skynet.
And a final word on customers and customer relations. The 122nd meeting of the Intelsat Council, Intelsat is another very long-standing and prolific customer of Ariane-Espace, is currently in progress in Salvador de Bahia. The company is represented here at this meeting by Jean-Marie Luton, Ariane-Espace Chairman and CEO. And what about Ariane-5 qualification program, Amy?
The scheduled launch date for the flight 503 is still nominally the 15th of July, and the current timescale for the launcher preparation and conclusion of the post-502 test and modification program is fully in line with this date. The main question mark just now concerns the choice of a commercial co-passenger to fly with the ARD capsule. The Ariane-5 main stage Vulcain engine underwent the new static firing test at SCP Vernon early this month, using a modified engine fixture in order to measure engine roll torque during this test. Viewers will remember the roll torque phenomenon experienced on flight 502. The test burn lasted 800 seconds and measured torque was practically constant throughout the test, to within ±2%. This result is regarded as extremely encouraging. Assuming the figures are confirmed by additional tests, it indicates that the abnormal torque which occurred during the flight 502 can be attributed to the Vulcain engine nozzle design, a situation which can be easily remediated by altering the arrangement of the two turbopump exhaust ducts.
Well, rendezvous in July then. So now back to our passenger to have a closer look at some of the aspects of the Spot spacecraft and system which were addressed in the 3 films from the customer. First, a look at the instruments incorporated in the Spot 4 payload, a substantially more ambitious package than for Spots 1, 2 and 3, and a big step in the direction of the further enhanced Spot 5. The entirely new vegetation system will collect and record data for a swath width of 2,250 kilometers. Acquisition data will concern not only crops, harvests, forests and pastures and so on, but also global or regional scientific studies in areas such as climatology and biosphere, and we're still getting these exceptionally reassuring announcements from the DDO. Data will be acquired in the visible and medium infrared ranges for all exposed land, excepting the Antarctic, and beamed down to the main ground station in Kiruna, Sweden. Other ground stations for the system are located in Toulouse in France and Mol in Belgium. Data will be distributed under an exclusive license arrangement by Spot Image.
The Doris module flying on Spot 4 is an improved version of the instrument first installed on board Spot 2, launched back in 1990. This autonomous navigation system, which enables the satellite to determine its own position and altitude with remarkable accuracy, resolution figures of 3 and 1 centimeter respectively are quoted, has now been in service for nearly 8 years, both with Spot and Topex Poseidon. The mission for the DORIS system with Spot 4 will include the provision of data for the study of natural phenomena, the installation of equipment, surveillance of existing facilities, geodesic survey, etc.
Well, the Silex Pastel mission is an ambitious, highly innovative project. The other half of the experiment to be carried on the European Artemis spacecraft with an Ariane launch planned for 1999 is the Opal optical payload for inter-satellite link experiment, and we have 6 minutes burn time to go, just announced by the DDO. The advantages of communication between a low Earth orbit data acquisition satellite and a powerful geostationary telecommunications platform, acting in this case as a relay station, are obvious.
ESBT is another experimental module, in this case an S-band terminal comprising a telemetry, transmitter, telecommand receiver, operating at 4 kilobits per second on a 2 GHz carrier with an outward-pointing hemispherical coverage antenna. This is designed for optimized communication with Artemis and a command-control interface.
Well, PASTEC is the Spot 4 technological passenger, incorporating a series of experiments in the areas of thermal cladding performance measurement, cosmic radiation, electrostatic studies for large low-orbit satellites, and the dynamic behavior of the satellite during the propulsion phases of the flight. And finally, POEM 3, this is a scientific experiment for polar ozone and aerosol measurement, and it's an improved version of the instrument which flew on Spot 3. But we must not forget that Spot 4 and the other Spot spacecraft, past, present and future, are just part of a complex system serving the user. The ground component covers a comprehensive organization handling every step of the service, from order intake to delivery of Spot products, raw data, added value products, maps, 3D applications and so on, training and consultancy. And it's still nominal up there on stage 3. The Spot system is founded on CNES, of course, but also Spot Image, in charge of marketing the data acquired by the satellites, Scott Conseil, a company developing specific applications based on Spot data, and GDTA, which provides a comprehensive user training service. Spot Image operates 23 ground stations for reception of raw data. Spot spacecraft have been in continuous service since 1986, and this means that Spot Image is well equipped to undertake studies with an extended time scale. Views of the same site taken on a number of different sites, different dates over a period of several years, and the Spot archives contain well over 5 million images accessible on internet, of course. Apart from the numerous individual companies involved at different levels of the program, Spot 4 also represents a particularly clear example of European cooperation, with Sweden and Belgium involved, and the European Union and Italy, and the European Space Agency participating in the Silex Pastel program. Well, Spot 4 separation is now imminent. So what's the sequence of events on board the spacecraft after the payload adapter?
Yes, we have about 3 minutes to go, and the main events on the spacecraft are monitored by the tracking station, specific tracking station for Spot. Wallops Islands is the first one, and then they have the pyrotechnic separations and the different deployments to do. First of all, the flight program executes a mechanical and electrical configurations routine in preparation for the main imaging mission. The first task is to release the mechanical locks which protect the mirrors during the launch. These mirrors are then positioned to prevent sunlight from penetrating the instruments.
And the solar panels deployment?
Yes, for the first step in this complex operation, the panels are partially deployed from the core structure of the satellite by 6 pyrotechnical commands about 3 minutes after separation. This is controlled by 2 independent systems. Mechanical detectors and gyrometer data are used to confirm correct deployment.
So,
Pilotage calme et paramètres propulsifs normaux.
again, everything is nominal on board. Obviously, we have to acquire the correct in-service attitude for Spot 4 with the instruments pointing towards the Earth.
Yes, this is correct. Once the solar panels have been partially deployed, the attitude acquisition procedure is commenced and the satellite is triple-axis stabilized for position and velocity.
And no doubt there's a lot more to come.
Yes, indeed. There is still a whole series of tricky tasks ahead, and in fact the flight program has to wait until the satellite is in sight of the Japanese ground station
Carte normale par les moyens de cours.
before completing full deployment of the solar panels. When the panels are fully deployed, 25 minutes after separation, the
Il reste une
altitude
minute de
control
propulsion.
procedures interrupted during the second deployment phase is continued.
And in real time, we have 1 minute of propulsion left.
Yes, then back to Spot, the solar generator rotation motor is released and the panels can be set at the right angle for maximum efficiency. The 3 reaction wheels are released ready for their final pointing adjustment task some 40 hours later. This sequence of operations terminates with 3 release commands for the Pastel telescope and 2 for the vegetation instrument. Orbit adjustment is followed by an in-orbit acceptance test procedure which lasts 2 months.
Well, my chronometer says that we have stage 3 shut down in just a few seconds from now.
Extinction, 3e étage.
So here it is.
So we have shut down of stage 3.
Début de la manœuvre d'orientation.
And we start the positioning maneuver for to prepare the spacecraft to release the satellite in just a few seconds from now.
This is done by the attitude control system of the 3rd stage, and the entire sequence lasts 34 seconds.
Séparation Spot 4.
And
now
there
it
we
is
have the big
separated.
news of the evening. We have separated our payload. Considerable applause here in mission control. So the mission for the Ariane launcher is not entirely completed. There are various procedures to be conducted now. The avoidance procedure and passivation, perhaps a few words on those two, Remy?
Yes, the avoidance procedure is inside of the Prince Albert station and lasts about 50 seconds. And then the Ariane mission is quite finished. The passivation is a later on maneuver of the 3rd stage to avoid any problems with this stage. We cut the tanks off later, and all the valves are releasing the remaining fuel so that the stage cannot hit something.
And we have the satellite team in camera now, and they're looking a good deal more relaxed than, shall we say, 20 minutes or so ago. Well, the satellite should be acquired by Prince Albert any moment now, within the next minute, I would say. And after that, the sequence is the Poker Flat station in Alaska, Katsura station in Japan, Okinawa, and finally Kerguelen out there in the South Atlantic.
Acquisition par la station de Prince Albert.
And there we have acquisition by Prince Albert. And in a moment, here we have it, replay.
1, top. Alta. Décollage. Tous les paramètres sont nominaux. Trajectoire normale, les paramètres normaux.
And I think we shall have another replay a little later on, taken from a different angle. That was, of course, the original launch pad area cameras in replay, and what we shall have later on is a view from a little further away at one of the viewing sites, the Toucan viewing site. We shall see that in a moment. Well, everything seems to be over by the shouting here, but of course what one does not always realize is that and we have the second replay.
Top. Décollage. Tous les paramètres sont nominaux. Trajectoire normale, les paramètres normaux.
Well, I think that second replay should clear the doubts of the most dubious of us all, and we can confirm that we have now just notched out the 35th successive Ariane launch on the Trot. What I was starting to say just now is that, of course, it looks as though it's all over, but it's all, in fact, starting again, because the Launch Base Fire Brigade will be out on the pad within the hour, starting to refurbish the pad facilities for the next launch, which we'll be talking to you about in a moment.
Le lanceur Ariane vient de réussir une nouvelle mission. Et au nom d'Ariane-Start et de son président directeur général, M. Jean-Marie Luton, je voudrais vous dire tout d'abord notre profonde satisfaction pour notre client, le Centre national d'études spatiales, et pour le constructeur du satellite, Marconi Space.
I was getting such a low volume of Mrs. Ari, it would have been rather difficult to translate it. I'll do what I can now. He is expressing his satisfaction at this successful launch and congratulating the various teams, satellite launcher, launch base, and so on, for their good work in achieving this success.
Nous remercions donc bien entendu le CNES de toute sa confiance. Je voudrais aussi dire que c'est la première fois que nous lançons avec un créneau de lancement égal à 0.
He is confirming the fact that this is the 35th consecutive launch, and also emphasizing the fact that this is the first occasion on which we have made a launch with literally a zero window. As we said earlier, a single shot attempt.
La performance qui a été réalisée par les équipes satellites et lanceurs en permettant, suite à un défaut satellite qui a été détecté.
And he's also referring to the exceptional performance of all the teams involved following the little problem we had at the end of last week, and that we have succeeded in getting going and making a successful launch literally the following day, because we're 3 days late due to the weekend. So, rendezvous for the next launch, Flight 108, on the 28th of next month, and that will be carrying 2 satellites, BSat-1B and NARSat-1.
Alors nous allons maintenant avoir l'intervention de Monsieur Gérard Branchet, le directeur général du CNES.
That was Roger Salari, head of the Ariane-Start Center here in Kourou. Gérard Branchet, Director General of CNES, the French National Space Agency. But I'm afraid I'm getting no sound, so I can't tell you what he is saying or not saying. I should add that this is an attempted telephone link with Toulouse in France, but here in the cabin we're getting nothing.
Bon, ici donc Gérard Brachet, directeur général du CNES. Oui, donc ici Gérard Brachet, directeur général du CNES. Je voudrais, après ce lancement, 107e lancement Ariane, réussi par Ariane-Espace. Premièrement, Ariane-Espace pour la qualité une nouvelle fois la qualité de ses prestations.
And like Roger Larry, he is congratulating the teams for the performance achieved on this occasion.
Les Guyanais ont permis de réussir ce lancement avec un départ à H0 impeccable, ce qui est évidemment important compte tenu de la
Once again, he is stressing the importance of and the magnitude of the success in achieving this liftoff spot on the launch target time.
In Washington and in Singapore, both those who are waiting for the images from Spot 4 and from the vegetation instrument, and also for those who are also watching one more success for Ariane. Donc félicitations à tous à nouveau, bravo aux équipes de Guyane, bravo
so once again, congratulations to all parties concerned. Well, that's almost the end of the proceedings. And we're getting... You're lucky. As they say in French, never two without three. Here's the third replay, again from the Toucan observation site, just 4 kilometers
à tous
from
de
the
Dédio,
pad.
fin de la chronologie vol 107. Les moyens sont remis à la disposition des adjoints. Le débriefage du lancement aura lieu demain, 24 mars à 14h en salle Max Hauser.
And we have the official announcement that of completion of the Ariane launcher mission from the DTO. Well, I think it looks just as good on the fourth time of seeing as first time round. Well, as the visitors here in mission control drift towards the exits, it's time for us to say goodbye. You see, it didn't really matter that we had no window. Ariane still made it quite okay. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. So come again soon, like for Flight 108 in just about 4 weeks' time, when we'll be launching BSAT 1B and NARSAT 1A on an Ariane 44P. We're off for that little bit of liquid refreshment that goes down so well after a launch commentary. So this is Good Night from Kourou from
Rémi Cochet
and Simon Hayes.